Hello, hello, and welcome to episode 98 of the Eyes Free Sports podcast. My name is Greg Lindberg. Here on this episode, the topic of conversation is audio darts, which is an adapted form of the popular game of darts for the blind and visually impaired. And I should mention that all competitors in audio darts are blindfolded, regardless of their level of vision, in order to make it a totally fair and even playing field. So let's go ahead now and get throwing at the dartboard toward episode number 98. Alright, so joining me here on this episode of Eyes Free Sports, I have two great guests here with me. First, I would like to introduce Sam Jasmine, who is from Plymouth, Minnesota, near Minneapolis. Sam, welcome.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Appreciate you taking the time to chat here. And then we also have Rich Koppenjan, who is from St. Augustine, Florida, my home state. Rich, welcome.
Thanks for having me on, Greg. Appreciate it. Absolutely.
Really looking forward to chatting with both of you here. And like I mentioned in the intro, we are going to be talking about audio darts primarily. So super excited to get a little more into this awesome sport. So let's go ahead and start here with Sam first off. And so Sam, just talk to us about kind of your early years, where you were born and where you're from.
I moved around a lot when I was young, but I was born in Vancouver, Washington State, and lost my vision at a very early age due to retinal blastoma, and eventually made it to Minnesota when I got to my college time, but attended some school for the blinds and then mainstreamed into public school during my junior high and high school years, and decided later in my life, my parents got divorced, I ended up moving to North Dakota, which is the end of the world. Sorry, everybody who's from there. But it truly is. Right. And I thought, OMG, I need to go somewhere where there's more accessibility, and ended up, well, I used to do a lot of talking to radio DJs, and I was also very into music when I was in high school. And everyone that I would talk to said, oh, you have to go into broadcasting. You have to go into broadcasting. And I was like, I don't know. I heard that I just thought it'd be really difficult to get into it, and moved to Minnesota, started off in my college years in North Dakota, and then decided, I was going to school for music education, and I thought I really should try. And so changed to a Minnesota school that specified broadcasting, and went there and found it a lot of fun, and that I really did enjoy it. And after that, decided that I don't know if I wanted to be in broadcasting, since it was at the time fairly, although not totally, heavily male dominated. And I probably would have been fired because I wasn't good at being a giggle bunny or anything on one of those pop DJ things. I would have been more of a serious female person, or
Sure.
somebody who was the boss.
Right.
And so I did eventually land a gig, and it was all volunteer actually, but it was on a local community station called KFAI, doing a show. At the time, it was called Disabled and Proud, and ran by somebody who started it a year before I joined her. And she happened to be looking for an engineer. And not only could I do that, but I had my own radio license. So I was an advantage to her, and came aboard and was there till she decided to hand the reins over. And then I quickly changed the program after a while to Disability and Progress. So I'm still doing that.
I'm curious, is it kind of like my podcast? Do you have guests on, interview style?
We have guests on most weeks. I'm taking a little bit of a hiatus, so we're playing some past stuff, but it is also podcasted, so we can be streamed, heard online, and we are also podcasted. So we kind of have the best of everything. And we air every Thursday from 6 to 7 Central Time on kfai.org. Or, of course, Disability and Progress is a podcast. So you can ask your brilliant speaker to play that.
Nice. I'll definitely include that info in the show notes for everyone as well to have. Absolutely. So yeah, moving on to audio darts. So I know you're kind of an authority on audio darts. Created an actual audible, dartboard. So very curious just to kind of pick your brain here. Initially hear about the history of audio darts. How long has this game actually been around, to your knowledge?
Yeah, this game came before I was into it. Some guys got together and thought that wouldn't it be cool if everyone could be on the same playing field playing darts? And in about 88, some people got together and got Arachnid to actually build a board that was accessible, very accessible, actually. It only had about 4 or 5 games on it. I think 4 or 5 games, one of them being a practice mode, so you didn't really count that. And it was built on a very large arcade board, one of those ones you'd find in the bar, or, larger ones that you used to see in the bars. And they were expensive. They were probably, I believe, they were like $1,700 was what I was told at the time. There were about 50 of them made. I think there were probably a few more. And half of them were divided up, where part of them were sent around the US states here, and some of them were sent to Europe. I don't know where they went after they got there, but here I can tell you most of the places I remember seeing the boards when I heard about them, which was in the 90s, about 95 when I came in, whereas like Chicago, Minneapolis was a big area because obviously the guys who started and commissioned some of this were from here. And some people in the East Coast had them in Pittsburgh. Also, I believe a couple in California, and I don't know where else, but those were the main ones. I think you could probably have found them in North Carolina and some of the places where larger quantities of blind people were scattered and could pour out, $1,700.
Sure.
So that's it for that. And when I came in, they were still working, but I would say in the 2000s, I started seeing them break. So the history, like I said, was a pre-recorded voice, much like the one is now, but I had it on some authority that it was the receptionist for the company that happened. And when they started to break, some of the people who commissioned it to begin with went back and said, "Hey, can we get some more?" And Arachnid said, "Ha, no way," because they were so expensive to make and they didn't sell the best. Well, with that amount of money, like you really had to be able to afford that. So nobody was making them. They were just kind of left. It was what it was. And eventually you were going to have nothing. So in the 2000s, I started, which was when I was well in there, I started seeing them break, and they were expensive to fix. You had to be lucky enough to find the parts at a used arcade store or something like that. They weren't readily ordered. So I decided that something's got to happen or this is going to die. And I did not want to see this sport go back down to, you had to have spotters. We already have spotters, but I didn't want them to have to tell you everything. We had so much freedom. And I had a partner who I was lucky enough that, wasn't lucky at the time. He lost his job, but I said, "I have something for you to do." So we sat down and picked apart how we would do it again. What would we do if we could design a dartboard that was the, quote, perfect dartboard? My first thought was get rid of that stupid arcade-sized board because, number one, it was way big and way hard to carry. Number two, you really wanted everyone to have access to this who could put a board up. And
right.
So the home boards seemed to be the best way to go. So then we started experimenting with looking at different boards. what would be a board that looked good, that we thought we could kind of, quote, pick apart and use various things, and one that didn't feel like it was cheap, because a lot of those boards do. If you buy a lot of these boards, they're meant to last a year or two and then they break. So after going through, and there weren't a lot of them that met our standards, and after going through a couple and looking at them, we chose the 650 Cricket Pro, which we took and dismantled and looked at it and thought, okay, how would we do this? And we thought we would find sort of a speech chip that we could use, that we could record the voice on there and game rules and things like that. And we ended up fitting a dozen games on there.
Wow.
Which was way more than the original. So I was very proud of that. Not only were we able to do that, the original did not tell you. So if you know anything about dartboards, there's rings, concentric rings around the board. The outermost ring is the doubles, then comes the outside singles, then the triples, then the inside singles, and then there's an outer bullseye and an inner bullseye. So if you got a triple, it would tell, the old one would tell you a triple. If you got a double, the old one would tell you a double. Same with the, I believe, if I remember right, same with the inner or outer bullseye. But if you hit an inside 20, it didn't tell you, it just told you 20. Well, you didn't know if you were inside or outside. That makes a big difference.
Right.
And so then you'd have to have, again, back to having a spotter tell you. Also, the dartboards that, were designed on the kind of the British system, which means to me they don't make sense. But, the numbers are not like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The numbers are like 20 at 12 o'clock, then 5, then 18, then, and they go around as such. So I thought, wouldn't it be great if you could design one that had the clock positions on it as well? So you could have the choice of hearing the clock or not the clock. And which is how I learned, 20 is at 12 o'clock, 3 is at 6 o'clock. I kind of learned that way. So I knew where my numbers were, and somebody could say, you're off at, 3 o'clock. You'd know where you were. And so that was really helpful to me. And I felt I wanted that to be on the new board. So we put a number of different things on the new board that wasn't on the old board. Remember, the old boards never went back. Once they went out, they were out. They never were updated, never were anything, because Arachnid had no plans of doing this again. So when I came, I actually called Arachnid and I said, are you going to sue me if I use some of your boards to do this? And there's like, sue you? Heck, we'll come and we'll hug you. We don't want to deal with it anymore. Please take it. So wow. I was lucky enough that they were very supportive. And then they sold off their home line. And so various companies have had it throughout that time. Now, up until now, every time I tell them who I am and have to reintroduce myself and say, I'm doing this, are you good with this? You're going to sell dartboards to me. And by the way, these are going to be sales that you would never, ever get if you didn't have me. So right. They've all been good. It's all been, on the up and up. The only thing that we do use is their display boards, and most of the rest of the stuff is pretty much ours, for the exception of course, the shell and the matrix and things like that.
Gotcha. I see.
We put our boards out in 2009, about around close to Christmas, and we sold, almost 150 of them. And then one day when we ordered boards, and because they were passed to another company, we opened up a board. We thought, because they redesigned the inside of the board, that means we had to kind of start from scratch with what we knew and how to redesign, sort of. And so it took us a couple years to get our feet back under us, but then we came out with our next series, which we've been doing well with. But we upgrade our boards. We still, make changes. Granted, a lot of them aren't big changes, because we've kind of gotten our feet under us and been able to get rid of the bugs that we had at the beginning, or almost all of them. And the changes that I guess myself feel like we did such a good job at the beginning. Some of the changes we've made were either customer suggestions that I thought, we really should do that, or things that I never thought of doing, and it came in our heads to do later. But they're small things. So that's kind of where we are now. And I guess I'll open it up to you to see if you have any more questions about stuff that I need to answer.
Sure. I just got to say, it sounds like you and your partner really took a lot of time, and like you said, just so much thought went into the design and the development and what was on the chip, the voice, programming that and everything. I'm sure it was quite a process, right?
Oh, yes, it was. And we did take a lot of time. And I am not going to go through and name the names, but I would just like to take a minute and thank our testers when we did do that, because we had people who gave a lot of free hours to test, and we didn't have anything to pay them. So they did it out of the goodness of their heart and give us feedback and things like that. So just kind of a shout out to them. Thank you for the testers.
Absolutely. That's quite an undertaking, I must say. And then so as far as leagues, so I know there have been some audio dart leagues around the country and different tournaments and whatnot. And if you just want to give us kind of an overview of, how that has looked in the past, how that looks now.
Yeah. The leagues ebb and flow. And it was at one point that we had a handful of leagues. We had one in Pittsburgh, one in, I think, Philadelphia, if I remember. We had North Carolina. We had one in Delaware, and there was one here. And I might be missing something somewhere, but that's about where we were. And people die. Unfortunately, when you have somebody who runs a lot of the league and they pass away or something happens, it's a real big undertaking to run a league, and it takes somebody who wants to do it with some drive and motivation, and not just do it for a day. You gotta be willing to do it for some amount of years,
right?
And that's an undertaking, right? So now we have far fewer leagues, but we have a lot more players than people have come and gone. But we are finding that we are getting more players from various parts of the country. I don't know why we're not getting more from all over, because this is a game that you can play all the time. And I have to say, the best compliment I ever received, well, I've received some really good compliments, but one of the ones that sticks with me is I got a call from somebody and said, I just want to thank you for creating this board, because of the pandemic, I don't know what we would have done if we didn't have this dartboard. And that was such a great, feeling that, hey, this is something you can do anytime. You can do it in the middle of the night. If you have a house that you can do it in, you can do it in a snowstorm. You can do it, if you're stranded in the house. It's just, or if you have a family event, or, so it's great. And we are getting more players, but fewer leagues. I know we have lost our league in Pittsburgh and Philadelphia, I believe. So until there's plenty of people there. So if anybody that hears this wants to start a league around that area, I have a lot of names that I can give you. So please step up and contact me, because I can put you in touch with people. North Carolina has a league. I think they have two groups that play. Minnesota has two groups as well. And one is the Twin Cities Audio Dart League. They used to do it, and they did it for a long time, which I was a part of them. And then I left, and they stopped doing it. Now I belong to the North Star Audio Dart Group, and I have my own 501c3 now, which is the Audio Dart Association. And that is who runs the tournaments now, that last year and this year's tournament that's going to be happening in October. That's who's running it. It's me and my board.
Oh, nice. And where is that going to be held?
That is held in the Twin Cities at the Crown Plaza, the 13th, 14th, and 15th of October.
Excellent. Very exciting, coming up here pretty soon.
Yeah.
Nice. And then, so if someone were interested in actually purchasing a dartboard, would they contact you? Is that what you recommend?
Yes, absolutely. They can email audiodartmaster at samjasmine.com. Jasmine has an E on it. So audiodartmaster at samjasmine.com, or they can call 763-383-0077. That's 763-383-0077. We don't take website orders, so our website, you can't order a board from there, because I really like to talk with the person and know what they want and get a feel, because I don't want to deal with, I didn't know that this was going to need this, and maybe I want my money back, or maybe this. I want to make sure that whoever's buying a board, that we really can serve what they need.
Right. And I assume the boards do come with the darts and the little thing for your feet as well, or as far as equipment?
So the boards come with a couple sets of darts. They do not come with a stand or toe board. You have to order that. Some people, they make their own stands or they make their own toe board. I don't care. The stands are pretty labor intensive. So if we don't have to make you a stand, that's great. Maybe we just have to make you a toe board. Some people like to make their own, and I have no problem with that. I only caution them, make sure you have the understanding of how far back you need to be from the board, because if you screw that up, you'll be surprised when you get to a tournament.
For sure. Yo. And just a little more about the stand or the toe board, just so people know it does basically help line you up and position you toward the board, right?
The stand holds the board. It's a lean against the wall stand. A toe board comes attached to that, but you could order just a toe board separately if you wanted to mount your board on the wall, because the most stable your board's going to be is if it's on the wall. That doesn't mean it's bad to have a stand. It just means if you want an excellent, stable place, putting it on the wall is a great place. It's good to make sure you have your board and stand somewhere safe, because kids tear through the house. You don't want anybody hitting the stand and knocking your board down, or you don't, animals tear through the house. So you want to make sure you have your board and stand in a good place. And if it's mounted on the wall, it's much harder to knock it down.
Sure, makes sense. And then before we wrap up here with you, Sam, any other sports for the blind that you've had the opportunity to try?
Yeah, I used to be a big goal ball player. I have not been playing that for a while. It's hard to find females that still want to throw their bodies on the floor, but it's a great sport, and I really enjoy it, and wish I could find a team that wanted to do that. I have had the chance of going to nationals and playing with some of the Paralympians on their team, which was a lot of fun for me, and great learning experience, besides having my own team at some point in my life. But yeah, are you familiar with goal ball?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you know what that is, and that's a great sport that is, I hope it's growing. I don't know. I have been out of it for a while. I did hear that there was, I never got to try it, but tennis, blind tennis, that sounds a lot of fun to me.
Yeah, I've actually done a few interviews recently here on the podcast on blind tennis, and that's a very new sport in this country, but it's starting to pick up some steam.
Yeah, I want to learn how to play it. I think it sounds like a lot of fun. And anyway, but that's my experience as far as the real powerful, accessible sports that I've done.
Sure. Awesome. I appreciate that. Alrighty, so then moving over to you, Rich. So talk to us about your journey and kind of where you're from here initially in your early years.
All right. Well, I grew up in Jersey, mainstream high school, everything. Was diagnosed with retinitis pigmentosa when I was 5 years old. but made it through regular high school without needing any adaptive equipment or anything like that. So that went well. Early 20s, probably lost most of my vision. Found out about some adaptive sports back in '84. Started doing some of the nationals in the US ABA, was part of the ABA and J team. Did powerlifting, shot and disc, did some running, swimming, goal ball, and then didn't find out about beat baseball until 2011. And
oh wow, quite a few years later.
Started playing beat baseball at a later age, which I would have known about it when I was in my 20s. Would have been a lot better, but still went out there and threw my body on the ground and did that. And, matter of fact, still doing that, playing for the New Jersey Titans. Found out about audio darts in 2015, I believe, 2014 or 15, and was asked to come to a mini tournament with the Philadelphia Audio Dart Group. And showed up there and grew pretty well. Actually, one of the people who actually passed away 2 years ago, Greg Ontarek, he was like the leader of that club, and he was like the best dart thrower in that area. And my first tournament there, I beat Greg, and it was like people were just like shocked. They're like, "Rich beat Greg." It was like, we took the giant down. It was the giant killer. And
right
from there, it just got better. And then they were talking about going to a big major tournament in Minneapolis. And I'm like, man, that's a lot of money to go spend. And what if you don't do well? And blah, blah, blah. But they went, and they, a couple of the guys from that club went and did pretty well. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna try to go to one of these big tournaments, because I was doing pretty well in the mini tournaments. They were having mini tournaments every other month in Philadelphia, and I would go to them, and I was doing very well. So I went to, I believe my first major tournament was in Pittsburgh, and I did very well at that. I took first place in a couple events, and from there it was on. Like anytime there was a major tournament anywhere, I was going.
Sure.
Then retired from my job. I was working in a pharmaceutical company for 32 years. Retired there in December of 2019, just before the pandemic. Decided I'm throwing away the snow shovel and never looking back, and moved to Florida, and here I am. So
wow, yep.
It's been quite the journey, but I love darts. It's the best $600 I ever spent, for sure. I play darts just about every day, and it's a great thing to have.
Absolutely. And like Sam was saying, no matter whether it's raining or snowing or hailing or, 100 degrees outside, whatever the case may be, you can get out the dartboard and enjoy it.
And like I tell so many people, to be a good player and beat baseball or goal ball, your athletic ability's got to be up there a little bit, otherwise you're just sitting on the bench. But with darts, you don't have to be the best athlete, as long as you can throw, throw something straight at the dartboard, you're good. So that's why I try to, talk to some younger blind kids about it and stuff, and just tell them, if you're not the best athlete in the world, it's okay in darts. You learn. The most important thing I think in darts is just learning where the numbers are. That was the first thing I did, was memorize where the numbers were on the board, because part of most of these games is to zero out, and you need to know where these numbers are. So if you get down to an 18, you got to know where that number is. Exactly.
I am curious a little more about the tournaments, how those work, the formats, how many people compete typically in some of the bigger tournaments.
Some of the bigger tournaments, usually anywhere from 25 to 35 people competing. There's usually 4 dartboards set up in like a conference room in the hotel. And, it starts out, we usually start on a Friday night, have one event that usually starts around 7:00 at night. Probably goes to about 9 or 9:30, 10 o'clock. And then Saturday, there would be 3 different events. with a little lunch break in the middle somewhere. And then Sunday morning, we usually wrap up with one event, usually about 8:30, 9 o'clock in the morning, where people got time to catch their planes to head back home if they're from out of state. And yeah, it's just cash prizes for the winners. Usually top 4 spots will get paid.
Oh, nice. And what kind of money are we talking?
It varies because it really does change every tournament.
Yeah.
And it depends on how much you fundraise, and it depends on how much you make. Every tournament's very different. I mean, you will make some money if you win those places, but it's not a guaranteed set amount.
Gotcha. I see. But it sounds like it could cover, say, the cost of travel or for
people
the winners.
Who win, I mean, they often end up covering, either their entry fee, or some can cover their hotel fee, or some can cover travel. It depends on also how good are you?
Mm-hmm.
How many places do you win? If you win 3 first places and the money's good at that particular tournament, you could cover all that you have spent. But if you win, 3 fourth places, you may not cover that, but you'll get something.
I mean,
gotcha.
in the past as well, I've reached out to Lions clubs who have sponsored me, like covered my flight, my hotel, and the entry fee to the tournament. So, at that point, whatever you make is gravy. So, anybody can reach out to a Lions club and try to get some support. Doesn't hurt to ask.
Oh yeah, I know they've supported beat baseball teams and goalball and all kinds of different sports and different activities for the blind. So definitely great advice. As far as specific achievements, either of you want to mention any tournaments that you've won, any super memorable tournaments or accomplishments in audio darts?
Well, I have 2 pretty good memories that I have. My first tournament that I was in was actually in a bowling alley. They'd set the dartboards at the end of the bowling lanes, and we were using this was back when we had those big boards, and so we were playing, and I had just come in not too long before that, and I was such a rookie. I didn't have my numbers memorized or anything, and so, like Rich said, I just threw at the board. I figured as long as I hit, that's better than nothing. And I ended up getting high ton, which means a ton is 100 or over. And so I got the highest ton for that weekend, and I got this humongous trophy. And at the time I was young, so I thought, oh, wow, I've never gotten a trophy this big before. And it was like my whole pride thing, because here I was playing against people who'd been playing since, 88, who I couldn't have compared to them. And I just happened to hit the right things and got the highest ton. And so for me, that's what cemented that. I mean, I've always been a competitive person, but that cemented in that competitive nature for darts. So it's like, whoa, okay, if I can do this being an idiot and not knowing where the numbers are, what can I do when I know where the numbers are?
Right.
And fast forward years later, I give my child some credit for this. When I was with my second child, I happened to hit 3 triple 20s in a row. And anybody who plays darts knows that's the highest you can get on a dartboard. And I don't know. I know that people who can see the board and aim, they can probably do it. But to not be able to see the board and aim and do it, it is a much, much harder thing. And I was so thrilled when I did that. And that was my second best memory of when I accomplished that. And I was actually the first one in the Twin Cities Audio Dart League to have done it. And I certainly wasn't the longest one there at the time. And I was a female, so I was really excited.
Wow. That's awesome. Rich, how about you?
I mean, when I started out, and like I said, went to that first Pittsburgh tournament and won several of the events, that was just, like I said, that was the icing on the cake. That was getting me going to every tournament. So that was a great memory. And then just last year, as a matter of fact, at the Minnesota tournament, it was first major tournament since Greg Gontarek had passed away, and his wife has been a spotter in a lot of these tournaments, and she was there. And one of the things that Greg would always hit, like he was known for hitting the 19. And so she had put up a thing saying she was going to pay the first person that hit a 19 was going to get a cash prize. And I was actually the first one to do it. It was like on my second dart of the tournament. I hit a 19 and then a 19. And Janet was actually the spotter on that board. So it was very emotional. Me and Greg went back quite a ways, and we're always very competitive with each other. And I was just real happy that I was the first one to win that special prize in memory of Greg.
Wow. I do kind of get chills hearing that story. Just like you said, the whole emotion and having his wife there and everything. Yeah. That's a great story.
You know, if I could add something, people make a lot of connections when they come to these tournaments. You know, you make a lot of friends and meet a lot of people from not just one or two states. We have had people come as far as from California. And so you make friends and connections. And as the pandemic taught us, if you didn't know it before, you never know when the last time is you're going to see someone. And sometimes it does happen, unfortunately, that you see your friend at a tournament and then something happens the next year. So it is good to be able to make those connections and come to the tournaments and see people and socialize and meet these friends and keep coming and meeting them every year, you know, because you never know. Sure.
Great point. Cool. Well, I know you guys had mentioned being up for a little friendly dart match here. So,
you know, secretly I told Rich, I said, you know, Rich, you got to let me win. You know this, right? And he pretty much told me the heck with me. So I have been not shooting at my best. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, this will be a fun little quick game.
I'm thinking what Rich is going to do is say, you can go first, ladies first. So that's his excuse to see how I do the first time out. So what do you want to do, Rich?
You want me to go first? I can do that.
Oh, yeah, go ahead. Since I'm thinking I'll go easy on you this game. So go ahead.
Okay, here we go.
19, 2, 34. Did you just push that button?
Thank you, Greg.
Oh, gosh.
2, 30, 35, 7, 2, 26, 75 points.
Well, all bets are off since you got a trip 19.
So, yeah, you'll get a trip 20.
Not yet. I haven't been lately, but nope, I missed. I missed again. I missed my whole first round.
What are you doing?
I don't know.
Round 2, player 1, 3, 1, 8, 1, 5, 8, 1, 85, 41 points.
Okay, here we go.
Round 3, 5, 7, 2, 94. 5, 92, 73, 2, 66, 30.
Smaller round.
Round 3, players 1, 4, 1, 8, 1, 9, 3, 1, 75.
Are we only doing 7 rounds? We never discussed that.
20.
Yeah.
Round 4, players 1, 1, 6.
I don't know. I might want 9. Okay, my turn.
Yep.
5, 15, 2, 51. 5, 16, 2, 35. 31 points.
Go ahead.
7, round 1, 2, 1, 3, 16, 19, 72 points.
Oof. I can see where this is going.
5, 10, 2, 22, 5, 22, 102, 30.
I'll be lucky to get to 100 by this point, but
102. 2, 88. 17, 70, 19, 52, 38 points. round, side 9 players, 162, side 3, 164, 30. Round 6 players, 164. Side 11, 21. Side 14, 27. Side 8, 19, 33 points. Side 10, 154. 6, 1, 30, 50. Side 5, 130, 130. Round 7 players, 131. 3, 16. Side 14, 2.
I'll stay at 2.
Oh, come on. Be brave,
Points.
chicken.
Round 8 players, side 10, 121. Side 17, 100. Side 4, 100.
Good game.
1 point.
Good game.
That is not how I'm going to let you do it at the tournament, but for now.
Yeah,
Awesome.
tournament's a whole nother animal.
The tournament is a whole nother animal. Trash talking is a must. And no, I'm kidding. We don't always, but it's a lot of fun.
Sure. Well, hey, congrats, Rich. And
Thanks.
it's really cool to kind of hear. This was really the first live competition I've actually had on this podcast here in the 98th episode. So cool
Yeah,
to
I let
kind of
'em win.
feature some action.
Nice.
All right. Well, again, we've been chatting with Sam Jasmine and Rich Koppenjan here on the Eyes Free Sports podcast. And thank you both so much for taking some time to chat here and for demoing audio darts for everyone.
Yeah, thank
Thanks
you.
for having us on, Greg. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Alrighty. To hear more episodes of the Eyes Free Sports podcast and to subscribe, search for Eyes Free Sports on your favorite podcast platform or visit eyesfreesports.com. Be sure to follow the Eyes Free Sports podcast at facebook.com/eyesfreesports and on Twitter at Eyes Free Sports.